The anger that comes from the Durham Report is not that we learned something we didn't already know, because those of us who've been paying attention already knew that everything regarding Crossfire Hurricane, this investigation from the FBI, wasn't on the up and up. We already knew that there were issues. We already knew that there was fraud and lying from the Clinton campaign. We already knew that there were actors like Peter Strzok and Lisa Page who were unethical. We already knew that Andrew McCabe was lying to the FBI. Why would anybody think he wasn't lying about anything else? No, what the John Durham Report shows us is that there is a failure in our society to recognize the difference between right and wrong, that even if you don't like somebody, you don't get to engage in a way that is wholly Stalinist, wholly Beria, and not anything having to do with America. And the Durham Report becomes angering when you realize, well, my gosh, nothing's going to happen to these people. Nothing at all. They could all walk away from it, giving some little harumph, being backed up by media allies. Dear Lord, what has happened to our media? And then go on to the next set of lies, which they also won't be held accountable for. Guys, welcome to the show presented by Americans for Prosperity, AmericansForProsperity.org, economic liberty and free speech. Congressman Jim Banks joins us right now of the Indiana 3rd District, also a candidate for Senate in the state of Indiana, former chairman of the Republican Study Committee. He is also the chairman of the Anti-Woke Caucus, and you have been very, very clear. This is your tweet, sir, as of yesterday or this morning. Russian collusion was always a scam. You read or at least have skimmed in great detail along with your staff the Durham Report. What did it tell you that was most shocking or surprising?
Well, Tony, I don't know that the Durham Report was shocking because it confirmed what many of us already knew, as you already said. I mean, this whole a house of cards, this Russian collusion hoax built upon a house of cards, now confirmed by the Durham Report to be a scam on the American people. It purposely disrupted the first 2 years of the Trump administration's ability to act upon its mandate by the American people who elected Donald Trump to move a mandate, an America First mandate forward. And instead, those first 2 years of his administration was caught up in defending himself based on all of the lies of the Russian collusion that was alleged during the 2016 campaign. The Durham Report also tells us that the CIA director at the time in the Obama administration briefed Vice President Biden, briefed members of the Hillary Clinton campaign, and many others, that all of this was built upon lies too. So this should outrage everybody, anyone on the right, anyone on the left, as we recognize that the deep-rooted political nature of the FBI is something that's not going to go away. The intelligence officials that were involved in pushing these lies, the lies that were used to get the FISA warrant by the FBI to spy on the Trump campaign in 2016. The meddling by the intel officials in 2016 was matched in the 2020 election when they prevented true stories about Hunter Biden's laptop from being made being made public online and shared online, and that true story that was diminished that now we know was true. And the thing about all this, Tony, I'll leave it at this, is that if we don't do something about this, they're going to get away with it again in the 2024 election. And that's where House Republicans, we have a 5-seat majority. We have a duty to go after the FBI and hold people accountable who were involved in these issues in 2016, again in 2020. People should be going to jail for what they got away with in both of those cases. If we don't hold people accountable, then we're going to see these types of activities repeated again in the future. We can't allow that to happen.
You put out on Twitter, intel officials interfered in the 2016 election and the 2020 election, and they'll do it again in 2024 unless Republicans hold them accountable. Exactly what you're saying here. Talk to me about who gets held accountable and how? What is, I mean, to the extent that there's a Republican plan in less than 24 hours, but you got it. You knew this was coming. As you stated, Russian collusion was always a scam. What's the plan? Who to go after? How do you charge them? How does Congress hold these people accountable?
So next week, Jim Jordan, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, which has oversight of the Department of Justice, the FBI, is going to have Durham come and testify before the whole committee. So stay tuned from that. But that doesn't answer your question. You're asking, what does accountability really look like? And in divided government, you have a president and Joe Biden who's abused his power from day one in the White House and abused his power when he was the vice president. By the way, Hunter Biden never held accountable for anything. I mean, the guy is so corrupt. The Biden family is so corrupt, and no one's ever held accountable. So how do we hold them accountable? With a Republican majority, we do have leverage when it comes to the appropriations season. The FBI right now is trying to move and build a almost $4 billion price tag. Maybe it's more than that, to build a new FBI headquarters. Well, House Republicans should hold up funding for building new FBI headquarters. We also changed the rules at the beginning of the Congress so that we can zero out the salaries of executives within different federal departments. So that's one way that we can hold specifically certain individuals accountable by sort of a line item type veto of their funding for certain salaries. So that's one thing that we should be looking at as well. But I got to tell you, Tony, I mean, real accountability. When we look at the 2024 election, listen to how Republican candidates running for president talk about exactly this: the Durham Report, the politicization of the Department of Justice, the FBI. What are those? What is Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, Mike Pence if he runs, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott? What are they going to do about this? That's the question that needs to be answered by all of these candidates running for president on the Republican side, because I think one of these candidates, we know Donald Trump is going to make this a focus in his campaign, but how are the rest of them going to deal with this? How are they going to uproot the politicization of the FBI, which is carried on from administration to administration, Republican administrations, Democrat administrations? What are they going to do about it? Because that's where the change is going to happen when we get a president who's serious about taking care of it.
The do about it is what we're going to look at you to do now, regardless of the election. I mean, you talk about not funding FBI headquarters and other things. That's a nice start, but it is not enough. As we look into what this Durham report has, let me show you this right here. This was actually posted by Tom Bevan of Real Clear Politics, just to give credit where it's due. Our investigation determined that Crossfire Hurricane investigators did not and could not corroborate any of the substantive allegations contained in the Steele reporting, nor was Steele able to produce corroboration for any of the reported allegations, even after being offered $1 million or more by the FBI for such corroboration. Further, when interviewed by the FBI in January of 2017, Danchenko was also unable to corroborate any of the substantive allegations in the reports. Rather, Danchenko characterized the information he provided to Steele as, quote, rumor and speculation, unquote, and the product of casual conversation. You give me one reason, sir, one reason alone why any American should ever trust the FBI again.
Yeah, I can't, and this is what I'm saying. We have to completely uproot the political cancer within the DOJ and the FBI. Congress, the House of Representatives, with the Republican majority, Tony, we can hold certain people in contempt of Congress or hold them accountable, but the Biden DOJ is not going to go arrest them for it. It's not that's the whole point. So this is a bigger issue that I mean, like I said before, I hope it foreshadows the 2024 presidential election. But you're asking the important question: what are we going to do about it right now to make sure it doesn't happen in the 2024 election? And I think when it comes to Congress, we have the ability to fund or defund certain departments and the salaries of certain executives or officers within those departments. And then we can hold hearings like what Jim Jordan, who has the primary oversight role of the DOJ and the FBI. Next week, he's going to hold the hearing with Durham to come and present the findings and the facts of the report. And then I hope that as an act of Congress, I hope that the House of Representatives puts charges on the floor and votes to hold certain people in contempt. And the whole reason why is this was my first term in Congress. I go back to those first 2 years, 2017, 2018, the first half of the Trump administration. And so much of what the president was trying to do, that he promised the American people who voted for him that he would do, was disrupted because all of the attention was placed on the Russian collusion hoax. Instead, there has to be accountability for that because it had serious consequences.
Let's continue the conversation about accountability, sir. Talking to Congressman Jim Banks of the Indiana 3rd District. He heads up the Anti-Woke Caucus in the House. He's a candidate for Senate in the state of Indiana. Your tweets, your Twitter feed right here. Let me share this with you. It shows a picture of Adam Schiff speaking to Alison Camerota on CNN, where Schiff said evidence of collusion is clear, and you responded with zero credibility. Is it the plan of the United States House of Representatives with Speaker Kevin McCarthy and the Republicans in charge to hold Adam Schiff accountable and accuse him not only of what we know, he lied, but to take away from him his committee for doing so?
Yeah, I hope so. I can't speak on behalf of Jim Jordan, the chairman of
ask him to do it.
The Judiciary Committee. Yes. I mean, I'll go beg him to do it. I don't think I'll have to beg him because I think that's what he supports as well, or the speaker. So Adam Schiff should be held accountable for that. He's already been removed because of his lies from the House Intelligence Committee, where he was the chairman for the last 4 years. He's been stripped and removed from that committee by Speaker McCarthy, and that was a good first step. But you're touching upon something I think is very important. The whole House should act out upon his abuse of power, the lies that he told during that period of time, and hold him accountable for it. Shame him in front of his constituents, his district, before the American people for the lies that he pushed and told that had serious consequences on the ability of the whole Congress to do their job and act out on an agenda that he was a part of derailing by peddling in these lies.
You know, when we talk about these things, sir, and I've had the pleasure of speaking with you on air and off air now for a few years, both of us being in Indiana, I never get the feeling that you're about talking and not doing on these subjects. But we see Congress talk and not do. In the end result, the concept of collusion came from Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Loretta Lynch, James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, and more. This was known. We talk about the fact that it was John Brennan, who I consider to be an awful person, sir, based on his politics and based on his history. He briefed President Obama and the rest of that gang on what Hillary Clinton was doing. And yet it still happened. It still went forward. So when we talk about Congress having to do something, there's a belief that nothing ever gets done. No one ever goes to jail. If I did this, I'm in jail for the rest of my life. They do this, it's no big deal. Never mind what we're going to be doing with Congress to rectify these wrongs. What is the Republican Party willing to do politically, socially, culturally, to get people to say, holy crap, what just happened here? And exactly how ugly is this connection between the progressive left and the mainstream media, which pushed this lie along?
Yeah, Tony, you're asking the most important question. And my answer is you got to look at what can Congress do and what can't it do? Congress, as a member of Congress, one of 435 members of Congress, I can't put you in jail. I can't arrest you. That is the responsibility of the executive branch of the government. What we can do is fund and defund. And in this case, I think there is a serious role for Congress here to use funding and appropriations to hold the FBI accountable. That is one way to provide accountability and oversight. Continue to hold these hearings. This Durham report was only released yesterday. I would argue that's about 2 years too late, too little, too late. by the Durham investigation, the Durham report, but it does provide some serious findings and conclusions that we have a moral obligation to act upon. So we can also hold certain people in contempt of Congress, but when you do that, the Biden Department of Justice is who decides to press charges, and that's not going to happen. I mean, this is a corrupt administration.
Lost the congressman for just a moment. We will try and get him back. There was something else that came into being, and Congressman, I'm glad you're back. Sorry, we had that little hiccup right there. Let me share this with you. This took place on MSNBC. This is Joe Scarborough's show, where Joe Scarborough was quoting something that came from a report from Senator Marco Rubio a few years ago regarding some level of collusion. And listen to how he characterizes the Durham report. Listen here.
Receptivity to Russian outreach as a, quote, grave counterintelligence threat that made the campaign susceptible to, quote, malign Russian influence. This was Marco Rubio and other members of the Republican Senate committee, the Intel committee, saying this. And yet the conclusions that are drawn here, again, it really seems to be a complete dud. Once again, another dud by John Durham.
A dud. He called it a dud. What would you say to Joe Scarborough?
Yeah, I'm not sure that his listeners are even buying that the Durham report is a dud. Obviously, this is conclusive evidence that the FBI abused its power. And if Joe Scarborough or Joe Biden or anyone on the left wants to ignore that and dismiss it, what I can guarantee to you today, Tony, is that Republicans aren't going to dismiss it. It's not going to go away. We are going to continue to press the issue and do everything that we can to uproot this type of abuse and politicization within the Department of Justice that should not exist. And that's going to play out in different ways. Like I said, funding, defunding, holding certain people in contempt of Congress, continuing to provide oversight hearings. John Durham testifying before Jim Jordan's committee next week will be very important. And the outcome of that, I don't sit on that committee. I'm not a member of the Judiciary Committee, but the Judiciary Committee has a big role and a responsibility here to push forward charges and other means of accountability. Stay tuned for what that looks like. I can't answer the question of what it will look like because I'm not on the committee. I'm not Chairman Jim Jordan, but I know that he takes it very seriously.
Congressman Jim Banks of the Indiana 3rd District, I appreciate you taking the time, candidate in the state of Indiana. I appreciate you, sir. Can't thank you enough. And thank all of you for being a part of what we're doing over here. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. My thanks to AFP. Check them out, AmericansForProsperity.org, economic liberty, free speech, sponsoring the show. Let me do this stuff, which is kind of awesome. And there's more of this stuff coming each and every day. Don't forget to subscribe on Rumble, rumble.com/Tony Katz. Subscribe right now and tell all your friends to do it. All the cool kids are doing it, my friends. I'll catch you next time. Take care.